Distinguished Minister of Trade of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Muhammad Lutfi, His Excellency Pan Sorasak, ASEAN Economic Ministers Chair, and Mr. Stadvinder Singh, Deputy Secretary General of ASEAN, distinguished members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. A very good afternoon to all of you who are joining us here in Ayana Resorts and Spa, Jimbaran, Bali. On behalf of the Ministry of Trade of the Republic of Indonesia, I would like to thank you and welcome you at the press conference of the ASEAN Economic Ministers Special Meeting today, 18 May 2022. We are very honored to have the privilege to finally convene a physical meeting after a series of virtual meetings as a consequence to COVID-19 pandemic. This afternoon, we have just concluded the ASEAN Economic Ministers Special Meeting. The meeting aims to address multidimensional challenges of global economic and geopolitics issues that affect the integration of the ASEAN economic community in the fast-changing world and dynamics. Ladies and gentlemen, now please welcome His Excellency Muhammad Lutfi to deliver his statement and later on answer the questions from the media. The questions can be conveyed through Zoom chat room. Please, Bapak Lutfi.
Mr. Chair, EG. Dear friends of media, welcome and thank you for attending this joint press conference. We are delighted to be with you all today to share the result of ASEAN Economic Minister Special Meeting in 2022. I have the pleasure to receive of my esteemed ASEAN colleagues minister, the Economic Minister of ASEAN Member State, and the Secretary General of ASEAN. It has been a long time for us to meet in person after more than 2 years having held meetings virtually. The meeting was chaired by Cambodian Trade Minister, His Excellency Pan Sorasak. The theme of its ASEAN Chairmanship 2022 is addressing challenges together. It was attended by the ASEAN Economic Minister and its representative for those who is unable to join, and of course the Secretary General of ASEAN. We had a fruitful discussion and exchange of view of ASEAN collective effort and strategies to address many regional and global issues to mitigate their potential adverse impact on ASEAN's economy and to push forward ASEAN centrality in strengthening the economic integrations. Dear friends of the media, Indonesia initiated this special meeting because we believe that today is a special time in ASEAN history. What we have achieved at the US-ASEAN Summit last week was unprecedented. The attention that the world gave to the summit, the substance that we agreed, and the future that we all chart as a community of 10 ASEAN nations. I'm glad that my fellow economic ministers from 9 ASEAN nations felt the same of the urgency, despite my invitation deprived from their well-deserved rest. Essentially, this meeting is special from 3 main reasons in the substance. First, the success of what we achieved at the US-ASEAN Summit is a momentum. Now I believe we must use the momentum and create some kind of a movement with one shared goal, getting ASEAN nations from middle-income nations to advanced nations. And second, suddenly, all the perceived weakness that caused to the world to doubt us to be effective and strategic have now proven to be making ASEAN the most relevant community of nations today and for time to come. I really hope that we could now promote this even more to our own citizens and to the rest of the world. For our citizens, they can be proud of their own nations and be grateful of ASEAN. Third, let's deepen our cooperation and increase our contribution to the world economy even more. Just by being united, we can protect the steady growth that we have enjoyed, and we even accelerate our journey toward common goal. ASEAN is facing increasing challenges and risks of conflicts stemming from different events across the globe. We have experienced trade wars, modern protectionism, and weakening of the multilateral trading system, even before the pandemic. And in addition, we are also facing new challenges such as climate change, digital disruption, and increase of inflation rates. Against the growing uncertainty, Indonesia initiated the IEM special meeting to increase ASEAN's collaborations and to promote ASEAN centrality to make the ASEAN economic community remain relevant, competitive, inclusive, sustainable, and resilient in the post-COVID-19 pandemic. The focus for ASEAN now is not only to recover, but build a stronger ASEAN. We must always have the mindset of making ASEAN great again. My honorable colleague, His Excellency Pan Surasak, the Minister of Commerce, will explain briefly the outcome of today's meeting. We also have adopted a joint media statement for your further reference. I count on your support to disseminate the informations today event for the public awareness. Thank you for the time and for being with us today here. And I now pass the floor to His Excellency Pan Surasak, and then after that I give the floor to Bapak Satvinder Singh, the Deputy Secretary General of ASEAN Secretariat, for any additional informations. I give you the floor.
Excellency Muhammad Lutfi, Minister of Trade of Indonesia. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, and friends from the media, very good afternoon. First and foremost, I would like to welcome all of you and our colleagues from local and international media to this important press conference. I would like to take these opportunities to brief our friends from media about the outcomes of the AEM special meetings held today. Today's ASEAN Economic Ministers Special Meetings 2022 held at a critical juncture where it offers ministers a great opportunities to discuss, exchange views on ASEAN collective efforts and strategies to address regional and global issues, mitigates their potentiality adverse impacts on ASEAN economies, and push forward ASEAN centrality in strengthening economic integrations, aligning the theme of Cambodia's ASEAN chairmanships, which is the, in 2022, ASEAN Act, stand for Addressing Challenges Together. With that, I would like to express my sincere thanks to Excellency Muhammad Lutfi, thank you, sir, Minister of Trade of Indonesia, for excellent arrangement to organize this important meeting in the beautiful islands, cities of Bali, and warm hospitality extended to all ministers from ASEAN member states, including myself and the AEM chair, as AEM chair. My appreciation also goes to Excellency Secretary General of ASEAN, Dato Lim Chok Hoi, and representing with your deputy, with his deputy and ASEAN Secretariat team for such an excellent coordination and preparations. Without further ado, allow me to brief to all of you the brief outcomes of our discussions today as follows. Amidst the fast-changing global economic landscape, coupled with other emerging issues such as the current geopolitical tensions, disruptions on global economic and trade activities, and climate change, together with the uneven recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic, ASEAN reaffirmed its commitment and determinations to work together to ensure that the ASEAN economic communities remains relevant, competitive, inclusive, sustainable, cohesive, and resilient in the post-COVID-19 era. The meeting also emphasized the need for ASEAN to remain vigilant and accelerates the implementations of ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework, which is called RCRF, to navigate these global challenges and to ensure that ASEAN economy is able to bounce back better and stronger. The meeting reaffirmed the objective and principles of ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific and to reinforce an open, transparent, inclusive, and rule-based regional architecture with ASEAN at the center. In the meantime, the meetings also reiterate the importance for external partners to work with ASEAN to undertake practical cooperations on the 4 areas, namely maritime cooperation, connectivity, UN Sustainable Development Global 2030, UN Sustainable Development Goals 2030, and economic and other possible areas of cooperation identified in the AOIP through existing ASEAN mechanisms. On RCEP, which is the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, the meeting encouraged the remaining signatory states to expedite their ratifications of the RCEP agreement. The meeting also looked forward to the expeditious establishments of the RCEP secretariats to provide support through the RCEP joint committees and its subsidiaries bodies. ASEAN reiterates its firm support to the rule-based multilateral trading system centered at the World Trade Organization and underscore that the success of upcoming the 12th WTO's Ministerial Conference is vital to securing an open, predictable, transparent, non-discriminatory, and rule-based multilateral trading systems. ASEAN recognized the need for collective goal efforts in tackling climate change and remains committed to achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement under the United Nations Framework Conventions on Climate Change, Okay, let me can. However, we emphasize that all trade policy should be consistent and relevant international rules and principles, including those under the WTO and the UNFCCC. Lastly, we also discussed and emphasized the concerted efforts and role of private sectors-driven industrial corporations in ASEAN in deepening ASEAN economic integrations, enhancing intra-ASEAN trade, investment and supply chain connectivities, and strengthening ASEAN's sustainable and decarbonization agenda in with the ASEAN Economic Community Blueprints 2025. With that, I would like to end my briefing and pass the floor back to Minister Lutfi so that you can pass to
Yes.
DDG section. Thank you very much and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellencies, Minister Lutfi, Minister Pan, both of you, chairs and co-chairs, the host of today's meeting. I think on behalf of the ASEAN fraternity, I think on all of us, we want to thank you all for taking the leadership of bringing together all of us, especially for the first time after almost a period of 2 years, all of the ASEAN economic ministers in one place in a very cordial, very friendly, very open environment where I must say some of the more longer-term strategic issues were discussed in a very intimate and very frank, open style. So again, congratulations to our host for making that happen. Your Excellencies, you guys have covered very extensively the discussions. I would just like to reiterate a couple of areas that on the Secretariat side we are going to be following up. I think first of all, as Excellency Pan has mentioned, there has been going to be quite a lot of study that we are going to be doing in terms of looking at ways to maximize the regional value chain, the strengths that the regional have, in order to look at all the complementary resources and some of the complementary markets in order for us to strengthen the transformation that's taking place in the region. I think we want the transformation that's taking place in the region, whether it's coming from the outside, the circular economy changes, or even our own regional changes that are taking place as our economies, some of them are developing, and they are actually moving out from certain entrenched sectors into new sectors, and therefore there are opportunities for most of those value chains to be redistributed. I think there's been a strong interest by the ministers to look at this very carefully so that we retain the value, we retain the jobs, we retain the activities, and we do this in a way that's meaningful, inclusive, and circular. So I think that's going to be quite a very important study that the Secretariat will work with all our AMSs. I think the other important point that Minister Pan and Minister Lufti have also mentioned is the deep commitment towards ensuring that the regional recovery is intact, and therefore there will be a strong commitment towards ensuring that our comprehensive recovery framework, ACRF, the commitments and the initiatives under that, actually so that the energizing of those initiatives are complete. We want to ensure that those initiatives are completed and the momentum is continuous. I think the ministers have shown very strong interest to see that the ACRF be a continued strive by the region in order to ensure we not only come out of the recovery, but also become a very resilient region in the world. I think those are my comments. I'd like to restrain myself to for the moment. And Minister, can I pass it back to you for questions?
Yeah, thank you.
Open the floor for questions.
I open the call for a few questions. Silakan.
Thank you very much, His Excellencies. Now, we will begin the question and answer session. We have received questions from the media. Some questions are submitted in Indonesian, but let me have it translated so His Excellency Sorasak and Mr. Singh could also comprehend the questions. Now, allow me to read out the questions. The first question is from Mr. Omen from Rakyat Merdeka. The question is, what was the main issue that has been raised and discussed during the AM special meeting? And what are the AM strategies to anticipate the energy crisis and inflation post-conflict? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, you want to answer first?
Okay. I'll let you know.
Yes. I'm gonna answer this in Indonesians, and I'm gonna translate it to you so then you know what I was talking about. Jadi yang kita bicarakan tadi itu ada berbagai hal, challenges atau tantangan-tantangan yang dihadapi oleh negara-negara ASEAN. Yang pertama adalah permasalahan daripada multilateral trading system yang sekarang ini bisa kehilangan arahnya karena memang tidak berjalan sesuai dengan keadaan yang ada di WTO, dan juga sekarang permasalahan-permasalahan yang kita hadapi dengan adanya perang dan adanya perubahan climate change yang menyebabkan harga-harga semakin tinggi. Kita juga sudah bicarakan tadi bagaimana negara-negara ASEAN ini dapat bersatu. Kita akan mempromosikan kegiatan usaha di mana supaya kekuatan-kekuatan ASEAN ini bisa keluar lagi. Di tahun 80-an Bapak dan Ibu kita mempunyai inisiatif-inisiatif, mempunyai pabrik bersama untuk mengatasi kekurangan bersama. Tadi kita juga mengatakan, men-summarize bahwa kita akan kembali lagi menghadapi tantangan-tantangan itu bersama. Dan ini salah satunya adalah bagaimana kita menyikapi produksi bersama untuk kita bisa tukeran barangnya sama-sama di dalam ASEAN dan menunjukkan supaya ASEAN relevan again. So, Minister, I asked, we have many challenges this time, especially with the inflations, with the breaking of the value chains, especially with the military aggressions in the Crimea. This will be very difficult. We had some initiative in 1980s that the business that we taking care together in order to supply us together. This is something that we are going to revisit, and we will do it again. Part of it is, the ASEAN grid for electricity. Maybe we can come back. Indonesia is initiating the ASEAN Aceh fertilizer in order to fire up again. So then we can make sure that address the problems of food security in ASEAN countries can be tackled. So this is the questions, and I try to. If you want to add.
No, you answer all.
Okay.
Thank you.
DG.
Minister, I just want to add that from the regional point of view, in energy transformation, that's going to be a very important area that's going to be part and parcel of our plan that we are building out. I think there are two big initiatives that ASEAN is going to undertake under the leadership of the economic ministers. One is the circular economy implementation plan that's going to be released in fourth quarter this year. That will cover, among other things, implementation initiatives that are going to support, amongst other things, energy transformation for the region. The other, of course, is the big plan on the carbon neutral plan for ASEAN, which again is going to be an important exercise. For sure, energy is going to be a big chunk of a contributor towards how we are going to manage the decarbonization of some of the the high emitting sectors in ASEAN. So clearly agriculture, energy, I would dare to say transportation, they are going to be the large sectors that are going to be part and parcel of the carbon neutral plan. So look out for that.
Thank you. One more maybe?
Thank you, Minister Lutfi and Mr. Singh, for the answer. Hopefully it also answered the question from Rakyat Merdeka. Now, let's move on to the next question. The next question is from Mr. Eko from Bloomberg. The question is there any discussion on joint efforts to impede the increasing food prices and secure food supply in the ASEAN region? India has just announced a temporary ban on wheat exports to secure supplies within its country. How does the ministers view the increasing rise of protectionism lately?
Well,
Interesting, no?
As you know that ASEAN has 10 countries, and we have different level of developments, different levels of development. So how we tackle it, we need to work together. And this meeting here is very important for us. After 2 years of looking through the TVs all the time, through Zooms, now we finally got together and expressing ourselves how we can be self-sufficient by working closer and complementing each other in different levels of capabilities, so that we will be less of dependent from outside. This is what I'm saying here. I think we should increase the intra-trade in ASEAN even more, so that the level of sufficiency for us will be more than we expected. Right now, we export more to outside, and I believe that to have more intra-trade and being an ASEAN as a country of 10 will make us even stronger. Protectionism is one thing, but ASEAN believes in pluralisms and regionalisms, which we honored in the WTO's charter. And that's what we try to own. We are working and honor it. That's why we are working on it. We are going to MC12 and talk about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to answer that straightforward too. So if the question is, the rise of protectionism is an issue for everyone.
Yeah.
But we assure among ASEAN countries, and Indonesia is a big part of it. But the commitment today here is to exchange our surplus to make sure that the one that don't have can have, especially Cambodia was offering and Vietnam was offering with rice, for example. And in order to protect the rice industries in Cambodia and Vietnam and Laos, we also would like to supply with fertilizer, and in replacement will be trade with in-kind goods that we can exchange among us. So we did address that issue. This is part of the food security and supply security, and this is something that we're trying to do with this meeting. We also address a lot of things, trade measures that been introduced by other counterparts, such as the European, the Green Deal, the carbon border adjustment mechanism, CBAM, which is will to us will impede trade, and this is also something that we need to address in order as a unity of 10 ASEAN countries with our counterpart in trade. Okay, cukup? I think it's enough, yeah. Okay,
Thank you,
very much,
ministers,
Mr.
for the
Chair.
answers.
I appreciate it once again. Thank you. Weather's perfect. It's not so bad.
Thank you very much, His Excellency Mohammad Lutfi, His Excellency Pan Sorasak, and Mr. Sadvinder Singh. We have reached the end of today's press conference. We do apologize for not being able to accommodate all of the questions due to the limited time. To the members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your insightful questions and your support in this press conference of the ASEAN Economic Ministers Special Meeting. Now, finally, let me bring this press conference to a close. Thank you very much.
Cek, cek.